right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Tips and Tricks meeting with SymTrain. Looks like we've got a couple people join in and hopefully a few more coming as we go. I'll go ahead and get started in just a minute or two. We'll let everybody kind of filter in for a moment and just get settled. So nothing to miss here for the next, 2 minutes or so. Good time for us to talk about the different ways we can be using SymTrain. So happy to be here doing this. All right, I'll go ahead and get my screen shared too. Great. Everybody's seeing my tips and tricks PowerPoint up on the screen. If anybody can give me a thumbs up or let me know from the reactions, that would be great. Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate it. Great. There we go. All right. Why don't we go ahead and we'll just jump in. I believe we've got this recorded anyway, so we've got plenty of people that they can catch up once we're done here. But thank you all for joining the Tips and Tricks workshop today with SymTrain. My name is Liz Powell. I'm the VP of Customer Operations at SymTrain. So my team works with everybody from the time that they've signed up and ready to come on board through implementation, support, customer success. We really own kind of everything in that customer lifecycle once they're working with SymTrain. So I work a lot with all sorts of different customers on how they can get the most out of the system. And that may mean a ton of different use cases, a ton of different ways to use their content. How do we bring on new teams? What if we've never done anything like this before? Or even just we've never really worked with a training or coaching type technology. What do we want to do about that? So we've had a lot of experience across multiple industries, multiple different setups. And what I wanted to do today was really talk about how do we best understand using our content and getting the most out of the entire agent lifecycle when you're using SymTrain? I think sometimes we think about training as really that new hire onboarding training or something that's based on super specific content that we need somebody to learn for the first time. And I think at SymTrain, we like to think of it a little bit less as just learning and a little bit more as practice. And what are the ways that we can use practice and simulations throughout the entire time that an agent is working with you to get better at what they're doing. So let's go ahead and jump in. As we're going through this, I've got some slides, and then I'm going to jump into the system a little bit at the end and just show you a couple things that can help you change up your content quickly and get you through some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. And then I've got time at the end for questions, but anybody feel free to jump off mute if you need to ask a question or send it through the chat, and I'll be checking that as well so that we make sure we're covering everything that y'all might need. Okay, so first of all, when we look at the agent lifecycle, there are challenges that show up from well before an agent actually shows up the first day. By the time that you've actually got that new hire in the door, things have been happening for weeks, months. It really depends on how long it takes you to bring people in. And just because they've left that training classroom doesn't mean that they're never going to need anything else, right? Your tenure of an employee goes a long time. And if you want it to go longer and get better and better performance throughout that, you really need to support them along the way. So when we work with our customers, one of the things that we try to do is not just bring in a new tool or a new technology, but to address a specific challenge. We're looking for something that isn't going as well as you want it to be going, something that's maybe changed, something that's new, something that we can jump in and show a real measurable impact that allows you as the business to know what you're really getting out of this. And it also helps us aim at where we want to get to. When it comes to training, it's really easy to get into boil the ocean mode and try to do way too much all at the beginning. But if you pick a particular challenge that you want to start with, that helps you align your expectations and make sure that you're building everything to get you where you want to go. So a lot of the challenges that we look at, and these start from before you've got that person in the door the first day, are things like hiring to fit the right person. How do you bring in the right person and know that who you've got coming in is going to be a good fit? Hopefully you've got more people staying, you've got longer retention, and you've got better results coming in very early. We work on things like training times. How quickly can somebody be ready to be on the floor and taking that call, to taking that action, to being able to handle that type of interaction with you? as well as things like attrition throughout the cycle. So attrition from they never showed up on day one to they never made it out of training class to once they actually got on a phone and had that shock of a first not so happy customer interaction, they decided it wasn't for them. All of those can be addressed with simulations depending on how you build them. We also look at things like what's the hard cost of these items that are coming through? What does it mean when you have to rehire someone because they didn't make it through? I was talking to one of our customers today that specifically is only allowed to hire at very certain increments, but because their turnover happens really quickly after a hiring class, they're almost always understaffed and they're having a very hard time figuring out how do we actually get the right people in so that we can staff appropriately and keep on top of these things. We also look at things like just your performance or your QA metrics. What are the things that you want people doing in a role? Is it the amount of closes that they're getting? Is it a CSAT score? Is it how well they're actually solving a customer problem? Is it adhering to the words that they need to say and making sure that we're getting the right things from a legal perspective out to these customers, as well as things like actual business objectives? Do we need to look at how much our margin is being impacted by these types of things? Do we need to look at what products are being out the door and how we're actually speaking to those? And one of the big goals that we're trying to help customers achieve is maximizing their budget. So as you're looking at what you can do for the year, it's not just about adding things on, it's about finding something that helps pay for itself. How do you find ways to use SymTrain to help you actually return budget to the system instead of just looking at it as another technology that we're looking to partner with? So the opportunities that kind of arise from these challenges come more to what do we expect to see based on what we're picking to address here? Are we actually expecting to see that candidates are performing better by the time that they hit the floor? Are we seeing that we can actually get performance improvements on some of these KPIs? Are we moving what somebody would normally do at maybe 6 months after to being able to perform that way at month 1 or 2? How do we kind of get that competence level up as fast as we possibly can? And then we're always happy to look at, are we reducing a hard cost for you? Are we bringing in more revenue? And what we want to do is work with you to build those goals in a way that makes sense for you. These are all different things that we've done with all different clients, and it's amazing the different kind of things that we come up with. So it's kind of fun. We always recommend a brainstorming session to actually come up with what are your major pain points? How do you measure them? And then how do we want to attack exactly what the problem is? So what we see when we look at these different challenges and what we're trying to address is that the way you address these challenges really does matter. And people move through this different maturity curve while also trying to move through a scale curve. So your baseline is kind of what do we get people in a classroom setting? We take them out of what they're doing, we teach them what we need them to do, and then we put them back into a real life environment and see what happened. That's kind of our baseline, and that's how most people today are learning. Then we move into how do you reinforce the things that you're learning in that training class and give you the attempts to practice, to see, to understand, to kind of live through what's happening, while finally moving into what we see with this one-on-one coaching or giving people the experience and the practice to do these reinforcement trainings, but individually and be able to do them over and over again at their comfort level, at their pace, and being able to get that reinforcement at an individual level, not at something like a class. This gets difficult when you move down the scale side of the world. This may be not terribly difficult if you have 8 people that you need to be working on, but when you have teams of 50 to 100 people starting every 6 to 8 weeks, giving one-on-one reinforcement to really make sure that they're learning isn't easy. So building ways that this practice and this reinforcement of these skills is something that the agent can adapt to and learn with is hugely important, because otherwise you're never going to be able to get that far on the side. You have to figure out how to do it one-to-one in a one-to-many environment. So when we look at SymTrain and the way that we deploy, when I say full life cycle, we really mean from before you're hired to retaining an agent and retaining that employee throughout their life cycle. We work with customers in 3 different ways, and these are kind of like our terms for what we call these different tenures, but I'll walk you through each of them. So first of all, we use simulations in assessments. And in an assessment environment, you're really thinking about either a new hire to your company. How do we want to bring someone in that's going to be a good fit for the particular role that you're looking for them to do? Or maybe even how are you moving people within your company to a new line of business, to a new type of role, or updated expectations? How do you assess someone to know if they're at that baseline to come in the door the first time? The other thing that this helps you do is it actually allows your agents or employees to self-select what's working for them or what isn't working for them. Allowing somebody to understand what a live call looks like before they've decided to take a job could be the reason that you don't end up with somebody on the floor that leaves on day one. It allows them to understand this is what I'm really getting into and help them experience the job a little bit more. So with assessment use, we typically see this as something that you're sending out ahead of time. It's typically a packet of different types of simulations where you're actually asking them maybe some skills-based questions and some experiential questions, and also some items where you can quickly say yes or no. So a recruiter, instead of needing to call 30, 40 people, can actually look at the results of these call logs and understand who do they want to move forward with. So you can make more informed and data-driven decisions about the people that you're bringing in before spending the time speaking to everyone. We then also work with onboarding. So onboarding, when you think about training, this is kind of the typical scenario that you think about is bringing on new people and getting them set up to do the job that they're there to do day one. So this is really where you're looking at how do I get them a pretty large amount of data and a large amount of content that they're going to have to learn and get them comfortable with it? How do we get them enough practice and time that when they pick up that phone the first time or when they go into the system and have to do this process the first time, it doesn't feel like it's the first time for them to go through it? So we recommend creating onboarding training that you actually use very early in an agent's onboarding life cycle, whether or not you've even taught them how to do some of these things. Being able to answer a phone, verify a customer, have a little bit of small talk, being able to do these things early in training allows your new hires to understand what the job is going to be like and make those little parts of soft skills easier as they get through this training. So what we see a lot in this sim training during onboarding, specifically, it's a reduced amount of time that it actually takes to do training. And that can be reduced either through classroom settings, because instead of having one person go to the front and do a role play and then talking about it with the class for 15 minutes and spending an hour getting through maybe two people, you're going to actually have everybody in the class go run a 5-minute simulation 3 or 4 times, pull some of the best and worst scores, and actually go through them as a group and discuss it differently. It allows everybody to get that practice much more so in a shorter amount of time. And then you're actually getting scoring that tells you, how did I do? What do I need to work on? And how do I actually make this better? This also typically eliminates a lot of the need for nesting, because so much of nesting is just getting used to how do I get from my phone to the systems to answering the next call, and what do I do if I need help? These are all things that you can train and work with in an onboarding session. So the last one that we've gotten into is really the one that we and I personally think is the most impactful for our customers. And that is AI coaching throughout kind of your tenured agent life cycle. And the reason that this is the most impactful is pretty simple from the beginning. This is where most of your agents are. Most of your employees are existing employees that are doing these jobs day over day, but that doesn't mean they're doing them perfectly every time. It doesn't mean that they aren't getting rusty on some things or better at some things than others. And it doesn't mean that they don't need that help on new things that are coming out, reinforcing changes, really helping them keep up with what's going on a day-to-day system. So coaching is about individualizing content into short amounts of data that help your agents actually learn very specific things that they're doing wrong. Maybe you have a problem with people not using the right closing techniques. Maybe they're not asking for the sale. Maybe they're offering the wrong promotions. Finding the agents that are struggling with that and giving them very targeted sims can help them understand how to get better at those different areas. And then when they see improvement in their own results, they're going to be engaged and want to get back through this system as well. So this is where you're going to see a ton of impact, a ton of really great use cases and understanding of what's really happening on your floor, because this is where people are really struggling. And when you look at this life cycle, you kind of actually want to start from the other end that you would think. Normally, we think of this as very linear, as you recruit and then you onboard and then you coach. But when you're implementing SymTrain, we actually recommend that you start from the coaching perspective. And the reason behind that is coaching lets you know what's really working on the floor today. So if you're listening to calls of what your best agent is doing to help resolve support issues, to close on these different calls, to be the most efficient or the fastest getting through the system in a back office type role, if you take that and use that as inspiration for the simulations that you're building for the rest of these, what you're doing is you're training agents on what works when they're really good at it, instead of letting them get through that time of trying to figure it out on their own and understand what works. Because we all know what you look like at day 30 in a new role is very different than what you look at day 90 or 120, especially those that have been doing it for a year or 2 years. And if you can train people based on what your best agent that's been there for 2 years is doing, then they're never going to have to go through that learning curve of, this didn't work, this didn't work. Just teach them what works from the very, very beginning. So the one of the great points about this is when it comes to content, you already have most of the information that you need to make great simulations. A lot of people come in thinking they've got to write out these really complex storyboards or think about really specific scripting that they want their customers to work with, but that really isn't necessary. If we look at the calls from your best and worst agents, and we can align those with the QA scorecards, the performance scorecards, the true outcomes of what those agents are doing. And then we can actually kind of look at things that you find most effective. That's all you really need to build what you want to train people on. We all know if you go back to those scripts that the training team has been using, they probably haven't been changed in 18 months. And if they have, they've probably just changed a little and based on what the training team thinks we need to get out there. Nothing against the training team. This is their job and what they've got to do. But if we can be informing these scripts and these role plays based on what real agents are getting results from today, then you're training people based on what works instead of what you think works or what worked 18 months ago, that helps you actually get those results faster. So in reality, you have most of this content. We can work with your call recordings, your QA scorecards, any of your performance data. And when I say we, I don't mean just SymTrain can do this for you. You can do this as well. This is all available to be used within the system. You just kind of have to think about it the right way, right? When you listen to the best calls, what do you like about it? What was it that actually made that customer say yes or made them say no? How do you replicate that and give people versions of it to practice so that they're doing it the way that your best agents are doing it? And the big part here comes back to that first slide where I was talking about our challenges, is knowing what you're trying to change is really, really important here. No matter what part of the cycle from assessment through coaching you're looking to do, you need to have this metric or this North Star goal of what you want to change so that you're building content around that change. Help build something that addresses closing issues. Help build something that addresses retention. Why are people leaving? What's causing these issues? And build things that actually get you to that goal. So a lot of times too, one of the struggles that we see with people just starting to onboard is they show up with a bunch of content and they say, this is what we train on. Okay, get it? This is what training has looked like. Why is that what you're training on? What does this training give you? Is there something outside of just this base layer of training of our agents need to know these things about the product? They need to know these things about how we work. Anything that has to do with how you do something and how you interact live, moving it into SymTrain is a great way to do this. And it'll make you rethink this training content if you're always thinking about it in, why am I training this piece? What are they going to get out of it? And then maybe a simulation makes sense to fit into that part of the system. All right. Sorry for the eyesore on this slide. I know it's kind of a big one, and I'll read through it, and then I'm also going to show you some of these things within the system. But when it comes to your content, what we think about, or the way that I think about it, it's almost like our recycle type of lines here, but it's reuse, revamp, and refine. So once you have content started, it doesn't need to be rebuilt from scratch, and not everything needs to be new. The real part of what we want to do is start with what we call a golden sim. And a golden sim is typically a full call flow, start to finish, of what your agent's going to need to go through. And that's going to, it could be long, it could be really complex, it could be all sorts of different things that this agent's going to have to do. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break that down, because it's really hard to train on something that's really long. But it's very important that from a training team and from your content creation team, you know that full flow and you know what you're trying to get out of each part of it. So once you get a golden sim, and you might have lots of golden sims, you might have one for, technical support issues, you might have one for resetting a password. There could be lots of these different ones. You're going to actually use that golden sim in multiple different ways. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can adapt that for different parts of the process. So when you think about assessment, what you really kind of want to do is give this new candidate a feel for what life might be like. So it needs to be pretty realistic. Giving somebody just a total happy path of what's going to happen isn't always what life is really going to be like, right? That may be great for training to know what every step is, but that may not really give them a great feel. And it also may not give you a chance to see how they respond to maybe somebody that's a little bit frustrated, somebody with a high sense of urgency, somebody that's not paying attention a whole lot. All of these are different ways that you can actually test where your agents are maybe struggling on the floor, or where the most difficult conversations come from, and help bring that into the assessment to help get them that experience ahead of time. So you want to make sure that there's nothing that's too brand specific, nothing that somebody new is actually going to get caught up in thinking, I don't really understand what you're talking about. You really want to keep it to a level that somebody on their first day that doesn't know much about your product could walk through, but that you're testing for the right parts of that interaction. You want to give them really clear direction on what they're there to do. Are they there to de-escalate a situation? Are they there to read the script as accurately as possible? Are they there to try and do this really quickly? Or are they there to add great small talk in? All sorts of different things depending on what you're looking to get out of that customer. And then the great part here too is you can give them, instead of a full script line, give them tips on what to say. Tell them things like, greet the customer and offer assistance. And some people are going to say, hi, this is Liz, can I help you? And other people are going to go on to, hi, my name is Liz, I'm so glad you called today, I'm absolutely ready to help, what can I let you know? And depending on what you want those answers to be, you can actually start to verify which customers or which people have the natural skills that you're looking for on the phone. And then the last one is, always pick things that your recruiting team can easily say yes or no to. You can ask straight out questions and say like, hey, in 2 minutes or less, let me know why this job really appeals to you, or where you want to be in 6 months. Something that your recruiting team can go listen to and say, yeah, that's exactly the kind of person we want, or no, I didn't hear what I was looking for, let's move on to another candidate. So great way to kind of really quickly suss people out and move on. When it moves to onboarding, this is where you really want to take that golden sim and create some different variations of what you saw there. So again, we're talking about maybe your golden sim is a payment flow, and you're going to need different versions of somebody paying by check, somebody paying by card, somebody that needs a cash payment and actually needs to go drop it off somewhere. Being able to create those different scenarios, but maybe a little bit more happy path of these are all the steps you really need to get. This is a realistic situation, and what a call flow is going to look like is going to be really helpful in onboarding. The other part becomes breaking this down into sections of the call. So depending on how you train in your classes, you can build these flows to match your agenda. Do you start with opening calls and verification and then move into problem solving and then move into closing? Or do you go through different call flows one-to-one, reinforcing things like that opening and closing throughout the different life cycle? So you want to match those up and build them in ways that you can deploy them during that training class to match the content that you're actually working with. And then this is also where beginner, intermediate, advanced sims come into play. So some of you may have seen this, some of you may not, but the basic portion of this is beginner sims tell you exactly what to say and what you're going to do. So it's going to tell you what to do on the screen, where to click, what information to put in, exactly what script lines to say. Where advanced sims will give you none of that kind of information. You're just expected to take it just like a phone call and be able to work your way through it. And intermediate lives somewhere in the middle, where I might be telling you what to do, but not how to do that, giving you tips on how to say things, tips and maybe like less things on the screen for visuals of where you're going to go, so that you have to make sure that you're learning as you go through these, and having people progress through that system really shows you that they've got the data they needed from the first round to make it all the way through to the end. One of the big ones that we see people get hung up on here, and a lot of this is because content has been around for a long time in onboarding, is you can't let perfection be the enemy of really good. If it sounds like a legitimate phone call and there's a weird thing that somebody said, there's a screen that doesn't look completely perfect, it's so much better than what they have right now. It's going to do a lot of good. And trying to nitpick every little thing gets really tough on you and your team trying to get things out the door. So I think it's really good to understand what your baseline level of acceptance is while you're building stuff for an onboarding class, so that you can say, hey guys, this is pretty good. Let's go ahead and start using it and get some feedback, and then correct it or refine it as you go. And all of this is available for your teams within SymTrain to make edits. If you get through the first week of class and somebody says, wow, this one customer just sounds way too angry and it's like terrifying people in class, okay, let's back it down a little. Maybe we need to adjust that. All of that is possible through your team, but it's best to get that feedback and then make it apply to what the people are actually learning. All right, and then the last one is sections of less than 3 minutes for Sims in an onboarding class. That gives you the ability to repeat them multiple times and for somebody really to get that to stick. If you build 15 or 20-minute Sims, by the time that somebody has gotten to the end, they've completely forgotten the parts that they did at the beginning, and they're going to struggle when they move into those intermediate and advanced Sims to try and get those same results. But if you break them down and help them learn the call flow in portions and then give them the full flow, they're going to be able to understand because they've retained each of those pieces. So allow them to really learn each of them down pat before you're trying to get that full call flow in place. It's a little bit different than the coaching side. So on the coaching side, you want to even go shorter. What you see with tenured agents specifically is trying to give them long trainings to address something that they're working on isn't very effective. They don't get engaged with it. It feels more like a chore than it does something that they want to engage in or that they see is going to be helpful. So keeping Sims less than a minute, less than 45 seconds, if you can, really allows those agents to get the value quickly, and it keeps it targeted to just the area they need improvement on, which should align with their performance scorecards or their QA scorecards so they know why they're doing it. If you give them a 5-minute call and they're only having a problem with 1 minute of this 5-minute call, you're spending a lot of time doing things that aren't going to help them, and they're really going to get it from just that little piece. They've been around long enough. That's all they need to get better at what they're doing. This is also one where focus more on problem solving than just difficult customer interactions. Your agents are typically on the phone with those difficult customers during the day. So when your practice looks like that as well, unless that's the problem, don't try to highlight that. Really look more at what are they trying to do and what the outcome that we're trying to get to. And then really too, looking at different versions of Sims, changing these up fairly regularly and based on the trends that you're seeing is going to be really helpful. And we're working on ways to automate this coaching algorithm for you so that we can actually give you new things that are up to date. But for now, this is always a great thing to keep in mind. Carlos, did you have a question? Okay, just checking. All right. So with that, I am going to jump into a little bit of some ways within SymTrain just while you're editing Sims or thinking about this that you can think of, and just show you a little bit about how some of these things work. And I realize I maybe didn't share my sound when I did this, so let me do that again. Okay. Okay, great. So first of all, one of the things that I wanted to show you is just what difference a change in voice can make on a sim without even needing to change the script. So I'm in sim creator mode here, and I'm going to go in and actually pick up, I have a couple different telco sims that we worked on here. And I'm going to show you this first one. that is just a computer-generated voice that we use. This might be a really good sim to start an onboarding class with. So let's go ahead and preview this one. And I want you to really listen to what it sounds like when this customer is talking, and then I'm going to show you a different version with the same script.
In this simulation, you will learn how to troubleshoot and resolve the customer's concern regarding the device.
Thank you for calling GlobalX. My name is Liz. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?
My name is Jenny White.
Hi, Jenny. How can I help you?
I hope you can help me. I can't make phone calls inside my house and don't have any signal at all.
Sorry to hear that you've been experiencing issues when taking phone calls. I can definitely help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
So you're hearing this go through, and you can tell that what we're doing is working on solving the problem, right? What is the right next step? And I, as the agent, am really focused on knowing what I'm supposed to be doing next. So now let's listen to that same sim, but one of our SymTrain employees actually voiced this one over to sound like a frustrated customer. The script is no different. It's just a human voice being added in.
In this simulation, you will learn how to troubleshoot and resolve the customer's concern regarding the device.
Thank you for calling GlobalX. My name is Liz. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with?
My name is Jenny White.
Hi, Jenny. How can I help you?
I hope you can help me. I can make phone calls inside my house and don't have any signal at all.
I'm so sorry that you've been experiencing issues when taking calls. I can definitely help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Jenny sounds way more frustrated in this one, way more like you're going to have kind of a difficult customer interaction. And now, as an agent, I'm going to have to work on diffusing this call with Jenny and making sure that she's okay with the things that are coming out of it. So you can see that just by changing your tone, it can really change the way that you would use this sim. This might be a great one for later in training class. Maybe this is a good assessment sim to help somebody know what it's really like. Or maybe this is even something you break down into coaching to really help you get through this diffusing a customer type situation. Cool. All right. Now I'm going to look at one of my golden sims. So I labeled this one as a golden sim. You can kind of see the golden sims within the system here, but I'm going to show you, and I've got my sim label right there. I'm going to go in to edit this sim. I want to show you a little bit about what it is to actually add coaching tips or change something from a, from a beginner sim to an intermediate sim. So when you look here, I've actually changed the first line of this sim. It looks very different than the second line. The second line here shows a full script and exactly what you want me to say, whereas this first one just asks me to offer assistance. This type of instance for an intermediate sim would be to actually move through this sim and building this out with these kind of coaching tips. Coaching tips can be added just by clicking into a sim, selecting if you want to show it after or show it first, and then actually selecting what tip you want it to do. So for this one, they're actually saying, we're really excited about your purchase, and I'm going to have to walk you through a lot of questions while we do this order. So we might say, congratulate the customer and let them know there are questions coming. Okay, you can save that tip. And then you can put what you want in the script line to be shown to that agent. So they can actually see some of the script, all of this script. You can just put keywords that you want in here, or you can even hide your keywords in the back end so that they're not seeing those kind of things coming through. All right. So another thing that you can do with something like this golden sim is, if you start with this long sim, I talked a little bit about breaking this down into smaller sections and how easy that can be to do. So when you're in the system, you never have to start from scratch if you've already got something great to go from, and having a golden sim in place is a great place to start. So if I actually clone this sim, it's going to give me a whole new version of this. But it's going to say copy in front of it. So I see this copy at the bottom. And now I can go through this and edit without disturbing my original golden sim. So I can take out whatever I want, I can change whatever I want, and add something to it. So any of these script lines throughout this can actually be deleted. I can even say, like, let's select all of this, and maybe I only want to keep my top, maybe I only want to keep the first little bit of this to get through what they had on a policy. I can delete my selected lines. Now I've got a shorter sim to begin with. I'm only going to be working on the part that I want. Maybe I need to change this to say, in this simulation, we're going to start by adding another vehicle to their policy. This is step 1. You will complete selecting the customer's name and address. You can give this agent what they're going to be doing during the sim, make sure that they know exactly what's going to be happening. And then you can add additional lines at the bottom. So maybe I didn't quite get as far as I needed to here, and I need the agent to be saying a few more things. I can also switch these to the other side. So maybe the customer here is they're replacing a vehicle. We'll have them say that. And then we can just switch sides, move that over to the customer side. Really easy to edit once you get in here, but it's all about starting with that golden sim so that you can just kind of change these things and break them up. Another thing I want to show you is a little bit about branching sims. So branching sims are super popular, but not a ton of people know about them. Once they do, it's everywhere in the account. So I'm going to show you what this sim looks like by editing this as well. So at the top, you'll see that I have kind of 3 different branches for this. This is cable, customer service, and 3 typical types of calls. So in this first branch, we've got a customer saying they want to cancel their cable. When I go to the next branch, they're looking to upgrade. Or in branch 3, they're looking to downgrade. So when you run a branch sim, you're creating 3 different script areas within one sim, but your agent isn't going to know which one comes up until they actually start running the sim. So as they get into that, they're going to see that this time it's branch 1, this time it's branch 2, and it's going to give them more of that feel of actually picking up a phone and having to answer the questions that come out. So this branching really gives you the ability to put multiple things in one sim. This is great either for coaching or for those late in onboarding type classes where the agent should know how to do these different things and make sure that they can get through it. Also, an easy tip here, if you're looking to add a branch, you can always upload a script. So you don't have to start typing each of these in. If you build one branch and you really like it, if you really just want to use your golden sim, you can download and upload that script with whatever changes that you made to it. You can also just record yourself having a conversation. You can generate something through AI, or you can upload audio if you have that perfect call of what you want someone doing. Go ahead and put it in there and edit it from there. So these branch sims allow you to put all of this together in one place. But even once you do, you can break that back out. You can re-download it again and use it in other sims if you want to through this cloning and updating type process. All right. So those are just a couple tips on things you can do within the system to try and manipulate your content a little, make it a little bit easier, or use it in different ways. And that is really what I had for you guys today. So we've talked a little bit about that whole life cycle and different use cases that you can use it, ways to adapt those sims and those golden sims that you're creating to use during those different parts of the life cycle. And then also just some tips in the system about ways that you can kind of start thinking about that and really get creative with using that content that you already have. So I am ready now for any questions that anyone has. I'm happy if they're about this subject, if they're about something else. I will do my best to answer whatever you guys have for me, but I would love to hear from the crowd. Anybody have a sim that they've built that they're incredibly proud of that they'd want to tell the group about? I always love hearing success stories and what people have found their own ways of doing these kind of things.
I have a sim that I built. I'm not incredibly proud of it, to say the least. But my question on that sim is, so for example, for the intricacies in the call,
Mhm.
For example, checking the network status, reviewing other documents. How would we in that sim capture those kind of nuances of the call instead of just sticking with the straight up and down flow of the call? Hey, thank you for calling Aetna, and running through.
Yeah.
How do we capture those?
So I've got a couple different ways that you can do that, and you guys can kind of think about how you'd like to do this. So one is simply really like showing those resources as screen capture and letting the agent know where you've gone to get that. And that may be a good way in a beginner sim to kind of show like, hey, this is the current troubleshooting doc, or this is the location for the current troubleshooting doc, so that they're kind of using that and seeing it. One of the things I really like to do is actually have them move into other systems and then bring that information back into SymTrain. So say they need to go to a troubleshooting doc, and what you've done is in the sim you've built it to say, check the troubleshooting doc and give the correct next step. And then you can actually pick keywords from that troubleshooting doc that are unique to step 3. Say that's the right step that you need to get them to. They have to then come back in and speak the right thing, give the right instruction, and you can measure that they said the right thing because you know what's in that troubleshooting doc and you've put those keywords in. You can also do that with things like links. If you have a keyword, a written keyword as a link to somewhere, you can actually say, hey, agent, please go find the link to the correct article for this, or please go find the next step or this sentence. And then they actually need to go to that system, find it, and copy and paste it in there. You can make that work specifically to say, did they get that right piece of information? And that's actually sending them into that tool. So you can make the sim look like maybe their main desktop of what they're engaging with, and then ask for pieces of data from those outside tools to come live back in SymTrain so that you're measuring on whether or not they got it. Does that
Thank you.
sound kind of like what you're thinking?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Eric. All right. I think if we're done with questions, I think we'll go ahead and close up for the day. We do these every week, so you'll be able to come back for more sessions. We answer whatever questions you have, so don't feel like it needs to be on topic. There's lots of us that'll be here to kind of answer your questions and go through this with you. So we hope you'll all come again next week. If you need the recording, we do put these up on the website, so you can go check that out and make sure you've got all the information. And if you need to reach out to the team, you can get a hold of any of us at any point that you need us. And always, if ever needed, support@symtrain.com will get you direct to our support team for any help that you may need. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.